In the heart of a peaceful village, nestled between the rolling hills and golden fields, there lived two lovers whose connection seemed as timeless as the land itself. Aisha and Malik were the kind of couples who turned heads wherever they went, their bond so palpable it made even the most skeptical believe in love. Together for 3 years, they were inseparable, sharing everything from meals to laughter under the moonlight. The villagers spoke of them in admiration, saying theirs was love destined for the ages. Aisha was a beautiful and strong willed woman with a deep sensitivity hidden beneath her confidence exterior. She loved Malik with all her heart, and he adored her just as deeply. Malik, with his calm demeanor and gentle smile, was known for his kindness and loyalty. His love for Aisha was unwavering, and it was evident in the little things he did, bringing her wildflowers from the field, surprising her with sweet words, and defending her honor against anyone who dared question her place in his life. However, beneath Aisha's radiant exterior lay a growing shadow of doubt. Although Malik had never given her a reason to question his faithfulness, a gnawing insecurity had begun to take root in her heart. The whispers of her mind, fueled by the occasionally gossip from the villagers, slowly started eating away at the trust she had once felt so certain of. He's perfect now, but what if there's more behind his love? She often wondered. Her doubts were subtle at first, questions about who he was with when he wasn't around, or why he didn't talk about his plans as much anymore. She would shake these thoughts off most of the time, telling herself that Malik was trustworthy and had never given her any reason to think otherwise. But the seed had been planted and it was growing. One evening, as the sun began to set and bathe the village in a golden hue, Aisha sat with her closest friend, Zainab, by the river. They often spent time together talking about life, dreams, and more recently, Aisha's creeping doubt about Malik. Zainab, have you ever wondered what goes on in a man's mind? Aisha asked, staring at the ripples in the water, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Zainab, a woman known for her wit and sharp tongue, glanced at her friend with a raised eyebrow. I think I already know what's going on in their minds, Aisha, but why are you asking? Malik's a good man, isn't he? Aisha hesitated, unsure of how to express the storm brewing in her heart. He is. He really is, but I don't know, Zainab. What if he's too good? What if he's hiding something? What if I'm not enough for him and he's just pretending to be loyal? Zainab leaned in closer, her expression serious now. Aisha, you can't live like that. You start doubting him for no reason. You will ruin what you have. I know, but I can't help it. I need to be sure. I need to know what he truly loves, me and only me. Zainab, sensing her friend's desperation, sighed. If you really want to test him, there is only one way to know for sure. Aisha turned to her friend, her heart pounding. What do you mean? Let me tempt him. I will flirt with him, try to seduce him. If he is faithful, he will resist. If not, Zainab's words trailed off, leaving the unsettling possibility hanging in the air. Aisha's breath caught in her throat. The idea was dangerous, but it tugged at her already fragile emotions. Could she really go through with it? Was she willing to risk everything to uncover the truth about Malik's loyalty? She looked back at the river, the water now darkening as night began to fall. I need to know, she whispered, almost to herself. And so, the seed of betrayal was planted on that would grow into a test neither of them could have imagined. Aisha laid awake that night, staring at the ceiling as her mind replayed the conversation with Zainab over and over. Her heart ached with the weight of her decision. Malik had always been good to her. His actions spoke louder than any words, but the gnawing voice of doubt in her mind refused to be silenced. She had tried to push those thoughts away before, but they kept resurfacing like ghosts, whispering the same unsettling questions. What if he isn't as faithful as he seems? The next morning, Aisha walked through the village. She was greeted by warm smiles from neighbors. Everywhere she went, people knew her and Malik. Ah, Aisha, how is Malik? One of the older women in the market asked with a smile. He is such a fine young man. You're very lucky. Aisha smiled weakly, the words of praise only feeding the tumult inside her. Malik was indeed admired by all, but it was that very admiration that stirred her insecurity. What if someone else caught his attention? What if behind those kind eyes he was tempted by another woman? Aisha could not bear the thoughts. Later that afternoon, Malik came by her house, his usual charming smile lightening up his face. He had brought her a basket of fruits, freshly picked from the farm. I thought you would like this, he said, his eyes warmed and loving. I know how much you love fresh fruits after lunch. Aisha took the basket, her heart swelling with love and confusion. How could a man who was so thoughtful and attentive possibly be unfaithful? And yet, she couldn't stop herself from doubting him. Every gesture of his kindness seemed to twist into a question. In her mind, is this genuine? Or is he compensating for something else? Thank you, Malik, she said, forcing a smile as she set the basket on the table. You always know how to make me feel special. That's because you are, Malik replied, stepping closer and kissing her forehead gently. I will see you later tonight, alright? Aisha nodded, watching him leave. As the door closed behind him, she felt like her heart sink. She knew Malik loved her. There was no reason to doubt it, but the fear of the unknown, of the possibility that he could be hiding something, gnawed her relentlessly. By evening, Aisha met with Zainab again, this time in a more scheduled part of the village. Away from prying eyes, she needed advice, reassurance that anything that would help her feel in control over spiraling emotions. Are you really sure about this, Aisha? Zainab asked her tone. Cautions. Once we start, there is no turning back. Aisha hesitated for a moment, her thought racing. This wasn't something she had ever imagined herself doing, testing the man she loved through deceit. But her doubts had reached a point where she felt like she had no other choice. I have to know, Zainab, Aisha said firmly. I can't live with this uncertainty. If Malik is truly loyal, then something will happen. But if he is not, I need to be prepared. Zainab nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing. All right, but understand that You are playing a dangerous game. If he fails this test, you will lose him. And if he passes, you have to deal with the guilt of setting him up. Aisha swallowed hard. The takes were high, but she was too far down this path to turn back now. I'm willing to risk it, she whispered, her voice betraying the inner conflict that joined with her heart. I need to know the truth. The plan was set into motion. Over the next few days, Zainab would make subtle moves to test Malik's loyalty. She would flirt with him in ways that would seem innocent at first. Small compliments, light touches, lingering looks, but enough to see how he would react. As they walked back to the village, Aisha felt her stomach twist into knots. Part of her wanted to believe Malik would pass the test without even realizing it, that he would remain faithful and prove her doubts wrong. But another part of her, the part that had been feeding off the whispers of doubt for so long, was terrified, and she might uncover a truth she wasn't ready to face. That evening, as Malik sat with her under the stars, his arms wrapped around her, Aisha could barely look at him in the eye. His voice was soft as he spoke about the future, about his hopes for them, but Aisha's mind was elsewhere. Her heart beat fast, not with love, but with the fear. What if I lose him? She thought. What if I push him away with this plan? But the plan was already in motion, and there was no stopping it now. The following day, Zainab began executing their plan. She made her approach casually, as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. She would meet Malik at the marketplace, offering a friendly smile and engaging him in a small talk. Aisha had instructed Zainab to start slowly, easing her way into Malik's life without raising any alarms. Zainab's first few attempts were harmless. Enough light conversation and occasional compliments about how hard Malik worked. Aisha watched from a distance, her heart pounding every time Malik and Zainab interacted. She tried to tell herself it was all for a good reason. She had to know the truth. But even in these early stages, a sense of guilt gnawed at her. Malik had done nothing to deserve this, and yet, here, she was orchestrating a deception that would break his heart. Still, her insecurity was stronger than her guilt. She needed to see if Malik would be tempted. Zainab reported back to Aisha every evening. He's been kind, as always, she said one night. He talks to me, but nothing beyond that. Aisha tried to hide her disappointment. Part of her wanted Malik to fail the test, just to validate the doubts she had been harboring for so long. Another part of her wanted him to pass, so that she could finally silence those doubts. It was a cruel tug of war inside her heart. As days passed, Zainab continued to escalate her efforts. She began finding ways to spend more time alone with Malik, visiting him while Aisha was away, lingering a bit too long when she passed him in the market. She dropped subtle hints that she admired him, that she found him intriguing, but Malik remained unaware of Zainab's true intentions. He was polite, as he always was, but showed no signs of interest beyond friendship. Aisha's anxiety grew. What if Zainab couldn't tempt him? What if Malik was genuinely faithful? The thought could have brought her relief, but instead it only heightened her fear. What did that said about her if she was the one creating problems where there were none? Are you sure you want to keep going? Zainab asked one evening, after another failed attempt. Malik hasn't done anything suspicious. Maybe you're wrong about him. But Aisha's doubt had taken hold of her too deeply. She couldn't back out now. Keep going, she insisted. I need to be sure. As time passed, Zainab's attempts became bolder. She started touching Malik lightly on the arm when they talked, standing a little close during their conversations. Aisha would occasionally join them, watching her friend from the corner of her eye, wondering if Malik was starting to notice. Still, Malik remained seemingly oblivious. He continued to treat Zainab with the same kindness and respect that he shown to everyone. Aisha's frustrations mounted. She began to feel as though her plan was backfiring, proving her doubts were unfounded, while simultaneously driving her deeper into insecurity. One afternoon, Zainab decided to up the ante. She suggested they take a walk together after running into Malik near the riverbank. Aisha had given her blessing, telling Zainab to push harder. As they strolled along the water, Zainab spoke of her admiration for Malik. "You're such a good man, Malik," she said softly. "Any woman would be lucky to have you." Malik smiled, but there was no trace of flirtation in his response. "Thank you, Zainab. Aisha is the lucky one, though she's my everything." Zainab felt a pang of guilt, but pressed on. "Still, sometimes I wonder if you ever think about other possibilities. You must get a lot of attention from women." Malik laughed, shaking his head. "I don't pay attention to anyone else. Aisha is all I need." Zainab reported this to Aisha that evening, expecting her friend to feel relief. But instead, Aisha seemed more tensed than ever. "Keep trying," she insisted. "There is something I'm missing. He can't be that perfect." Aisha's paranoia grew with each passing day. Despite Zainab's constant reports of Malik's loyalty, Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She began to imagine scenarios where Malik and Zainab might be together without her knowledge, picturing them sharing secret moments of affections behind her back. This is so funny, right? Guys, if you're still watching this video, kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notification bell to notify you whenever I post videos. Let's move ahead. Her relationship with Malik started to suffer as a result. She became distant, her conversation with him filled with unspoken tension. Malik noticed the change, but couldn't understand the cause. "Is everything alright, Aisha?" he asked one evening as they sat together under the stars. "You've been quiet lately." Aisha forced a smile. "I'm fine, Malik. Just tired, I guess." But the truth was far more complicated. Her doubts were consuming her, poisoning her love for him. She couldn't even enjoy the simple moments they used to share because the voice in her head kept whispering, "What if he's lying? What if he's hiding something?" Zainab too was starting to feel the strain. "Aisha, I don't think this is working," she said one evening after another failed attempt to seduce Malik. "He's not interested in me. I don't think he's ever will be." But Aisha refused to listen. "No, keep going," she said, her voice tight with desperation. "He will slip up eventually. He has to." Zainab hesitated. She could see that her friend was spiraling, but she had committed to the plan and didn't want to abandon Aisha in the middle of it. "All right," she said reluctantly, "but don't say I don't warn you." Weeks passed, and despite Zainab's increasingly daring efforts, Malik remained steadfast. Aisha's frustrations reached its peak. She felt trapped in her web of her own, making unsure whether to feel relieved that Malik had passed every test or devastated by the uncertainty that still gnawed at her. Zainab, growing tired of the game, decided it was time for final one attempt. Something bolder, something that would either force Malik's hand or put an end to Aisha's doubt once and for all. One afternoon, when Malik was walking in the fields, Zainab approached him. The sun was high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the land, but there was nothing peaceful about the tension building between them. Zainab made her move, this time with unmixable intent. She reached out, placed her hand on Malik's chest, her eyes locking into his. "Malik," she whispered, her voice low and sultry, "I've been thinking about you a lot. I can't stop myself anymore. You and I, we should be together." Malik took a step back, startled by the sudden boldness of her words. "Zainab, what are you doing?" he asked, confusion etched across his face. Zainab moved closer, her hand lingering on his arm. "You know, I've always admired you. Aisha doesn't have to know. We could have something special, something just between us." Malik's expression darkened. He pulled away from her, his voice firm. "Zainab, stop this! Aisha is my woman. I love her and nothing will change that." Zainab's heart raced, but she could see that Malik was slipping through her fingers. She had one last card to play. "Are you sure, Malik? You don't have to decide now. Just think about it." With that, she walked away, leaving Malik standing alone in the field, bewildered by what had just happened that evening. Zainab recounted the encounter to Aisha. "He didn't fall for it," she said, her voice tinged with both relief and frustration. "I think we need to stop." But Aisha, instead of feeling relief, only grew more anxious. Her doubt had consumed her entirely, and now it had turned into something darker. "I don't understand," she muttered to herself. "Why isn't he interested? Is there something wrong with me?" Zainab's eye widened in shock. "Aisha, what are you talking about? Malik loves you. Can't you see that?" But Aisha was too far gone to listen. And Zainab's final attempt, things began to change between her and Malik. After Zainab's final attempt, things began to change between her and Malik. Though he had rejected her advances, something had shifted. Malik couldn't shake the strange feeling that lingered after his encounter with Zainab. Her words had unsettled him, not because he was tempted, but because they made him question the dynamics of his relationships with both women. He began to see Zainab differently, his guard gnawed up whenever she was around. But there was something else, an unspoken connection he had never noticed before. Though he had always loved Aisha, Zainab's words stirred a curiosity about their differences. Zainab was bold, confident, unafraid to speak her mind, while Aisha had always been more reserved, more cautious. Malik found himself thinking about those differences more often than he would have liked. Meanwhile, Aisha was apparently into despair. Her plan to test Malik's loyalty had backfired spectacularly. Instead of finding the clarity she thought, she had only deepened the chasm between herself and the man she loved. She began avoiding Malik, unable to face him with the guilt of her deception weighing on her conscience. Malik noticed the growing distance between them, but every time he tried to ask Aisha what was wrong, she brushed him off, saying she was fine, but she wasn't fine, and Malik could sense it. One evening, after days of silence between them, Malik confronted Aisha. "What's going on, Aisha?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "You've been so distant lately. I feel like I'm losing you." Aisha couldn't hold back her emotions any longer. Tears filled her eyes as she collapsed into his arms, her guilt finally spilling out. "I'm so sorry, Malik," she sobbed. "I did something terrible." Malik's heart raced as he held her, his mind spinning with confusion. "What are you talking about?" Aisha wiped her tears, trying steadily her voice. "I doubted you, Malik. I asked Zainab to test you, to see if you would fall for her. I didn't trust you, and now I've ruined everything." Malik's face went pale as her words sank in. He stepped back, his heart pounding with a mix of anger and betrayal. "You did what?" Malik couldn't believe what he was hearing. The woman he loved, the one he had been nothing but loyal to, had set a trap for him, a trap that in his mind spoke more about her lack of faith in him than anything else. His anger bubbled up, a storm of emotions he had never felt before. "Aisha, how could you?" he asked, his voice tight with hurt. "You didn't trust me? After everything we've been through?" Aisha sobbed harder, her regret overwhelming her. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Malik. I was scared. I needed to know if you really love me." Malik's eyes hardened. "And you thought the way to do that was by sending your friend to seduce me? What kind of love is that, Aisha?" Aisha had no words. She had made a terrible mistake, and now it was all falling apart. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Malik stood there for a long moment, staring at her with a mix of disbelief and heartbreak. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, standing alone in the doorway, her heart shattered. Malik's heart felt heavy as he walked away from Aisha. That night, he couldn't believe the woman he had loved would go to such lengths to test him, to question his loyalty in such a cruel way. It wasn't just about Zainab's advances. It was about trust, or rather, the complete lack of it. The next few days were a blur for Malik. He buried himself in work, hoping the physical exertion would dull the emotional pain. But no matter how hard he worked, he couldn't escape the gnawing sense of betrayal. Aisha's confession kept replaying in his mind. She doubted me? She thought I would betray her? Aisha, on the other hand, was drawing in regret. She had thought her plan would bring her peace of mind, but all it had done was destroy the very thing she had been trying to protect. Malik had stopped visiting her, and whenever she saw him in the village, he barely looked at her way. She knew she had hurt him deeply, and the realization tore him apart. Zainab, too, was caught in the middle. She had done what Aisha asked, but now she found herself feeling guilty for her role in the deception. She hadn't expected Malik to react the way he did. Growing between him and Aisha made her feel uneasy. She had never meant to come between them, yet now it seemed like she had. One afternoon, Zainab decided to visit Aisha, hoping to clear the air. "Aisha, you need to talk to Malik," she urged. "You can't just let this fester. He needs to hear how sorry you are." "I've tried," Aisha said, her voice shaky with emotion.